Hello, everybody. How are you? Welcome to The Sweat. It is presented by DraftKings. I am Emerson Lotzia, wishing everyone a good morning, especially America's team, the Jacksonville Jaguars, baby, still alive in the NFL playoff picture, thanks to the Steelers losing to the Vikings last night. We've got a great show for you guys and gals today. The legendary Kendrick Perkins will join the show, which will lead us into who to build your NBA lineups around. We'll talk about who to pay up for on the ice and where you can save some cash on the main NFL slate this Sunday. Up first, NFL best bets on the DraftKings Sportsbook with DraftKings contributors Jeff Ulrich, Pierce Dietrich, and Mr. Steve Buchanan. Jeff, real quick, I know you have been a Kirk Cousins hater since day one. How'd you feel after the way he got it done last night and in primetime, bud?
I mean, I felt very good, Emerson, because I told everybody to bet the Vikings -3 yesterday. So it said, the Pittsburgh stinks. And Kirk Cousins, as much as he tried to give the game away and made it very close for me at the end and almost gave me a heart attack, yes, he did finally pick up a primetime win. Congrats on moving your record to 2 and 171 in primetime for Cousins. Well done.
You know what's ridiculous is, how Reed Fowler is a Kirk Cousins stan, and he didn't even play him last night in his season-long.
He's such a coward, isn't he?
He really is a coward. He really, really is. All right, guys, this Sunday, highest spread on the main slate has the Chargers, 9.5-point favorites on the DK Sportsbook at home over the Giants, who are likely to be without Daniel Jones again. After their win on the road in Cincy, though, do you think LA gets it done, Steven?
So this Chargers team is kind of like the Raiders. I just can't figure them out week after week. With that said now, who's going to be a quarterback? Jake Fromm? I mean, come on. Now they're going to go out and beat the Chargers? Maybe you don't want to take this spread because it's so large. And quite frankly, this whole board stinks in week 14, okay? Let's just be totally honest, all right? There's not any bets that you're like, oh, I definitely want to take this one. But if I know the team is going to win and I'm going to bet on a team that I most likely is going to win, it's probably the Chargers against the Giants, who we don't even know who they're rolling out anymore at this point because there's so many injuries. This is like the fourth-string quarterback they're using at this point. Mike Glennon's got the concussion. I know the Chargers are having their COVID issues. Maybe they don't have Mike Williams. Maybe they don't have Keenan Allen. They still can beat the Giants.
Yep.
And probably by double digits. So
yep.
I'll take this spread. It's a big spread. You're not going to feel great about it, but who are the Giants going to beat the Chargers with? Nobody.
Yeah, Jeff, Giants have gone into the tank offensively, and it really doesn't matter who's quarterbacking or calling plays, really.
I don't really think it matters who plays quarterback here, though. That's the thing. And Steve is trying to peg who the Chargers are. The Chargers are they're a flawed team. I mean, they show up and sometimes they put up 40 points and then they allow 37 points. Look, I'm playing the Giants. I haven't even looked at the quarterback situation this week. I don't care because they're just going to try and run Saquon Barkley. And you know what? They're going to have success because the Chargers stink on rush defense. Here's some stats for you under Joe Judge with the Giants. They are 9-5 as an away team against the spread since Joe Judge took over. They're even better after a loss under Joe Judge against the spread. And they have lost a lot straight up, but they cover. The Giants are a good against the spread team. I think the time to get on them was really at 10.5, but even at 9 points, I'm not trusting the Chargers to cover that big a spread because they're not that good a team.
Ooh, Pierce, you agree with that?
I agree. I've been saying the Chargers have not been good all season. They're very inconsistent. They've got the weapons, but this is kind of an overreaction to last week. Yes, they surprisingly beat the Bengals pretty handedly, but they really took advantage of some key turnovers, turning turnovers into touchdowns, putting the Bengals in a bad game script. Burrow had a broken finger. Basically, everything went right in that matchup, and Herbert was able to nail these deep passes. But like Steve said, this Giants team is awful, and they didn't go into the tank. They've been in the tank all season. Maybe the new offensive scheme might help them, but I wouldn't be surprised to see the Chargers kind of back down from what they usually play, which is to leave their safeties back and not put people in the box. Why would you leave your safeties back and continue to play this, bend but don't break defense that allows the run against the Giants? The Giants aren't going to pass. So if we ever see the Chargers kind of change and maybe key in on the run a little bit more, it would be this week. And the Giants have a terrible offensive line as well. It's one of the worst offensive run blocking units in the league. I just don't see how the Giants can score, even with facing a bad rush defense.
All right, well, speaking of the NFC East here, we have a weekly special in the DK Sportsbook, guys, focusing on the Dallas-Washington matchup. So you can get plus 100 odds for Dak Prescott's passing yards plus Antonio Gibson's rushing yards to go over a combined 359.5. Who wants it? I know you do, Ulrich.
I want it, but it's predicated on one thing, and that's the health of J.D. McKissic. Look, Antonio Gibson is going to get 20, 25, maybe 30 touches in this game if McKissic sits. But as we've seen, I mean, when Washington gets in a pass-happy situation, they will happily sit Gibson and just feed McKissic like short little targets. So I think this game will end up close, and I do think Dak Prescott has a chance to break 300 yards. So I like that side of it. Again, like Tony Pollard banged up. Zeke stinks. I mean, I think Dallas is going to have to pass the ball to win this game, and Washington is a funnel to the pass defense. They've allowed the third most pass yards per game. It's a good spot for Dak. It's just you need that Antonio Gibson. You need those carries because he's not that efficient a runner. Washington doesn't have that good O-line. So I think I'd wait on the McKissic news. If he sits, take the over.
All right, Pierce, do you have to wait? Do you agree with Jeff?
Well, let's just assume McKissick's out and you get full Gibson. I still don't like it. I don't like the correlation here. And it just starts with Dak Prescott and the Cowboys. They're completely healthy, but the running game is not that healthy. They've got their all O-lines back. The receivers are there. I expect a breakout game from the Cowboys against Washington has played well. And Reed was right. Washington has benefited from the bye week and then 4 soft games, but they've got injuries piling up on the defensive side. They have a bad pass DVOA. Dallas looks like they're going to attack through the air. I think Dak gets over this number, but I don't know if Gibson's going to be in a game script where he gets those 25 carries.
Okay, Steve, how do you approach this one?
Yeah, this is totally game script, right? Like, this would be a great game script if you think Washington's going to win their 5th straight game in a row, but that's not going to happen. So why would I like this one, right? I mean, if you look at the average passing yards and average rushing yards for both of these players, you're still 4 yards off. So obviously you're right in that realm. But with that said, like, this is where I think the Washington win streak comes to an end. And, you know, Antonio Gibson has benefited from this winning streak because he's getting more carries because Washington is just trying to round out the clock in the second half of the game because they're winning all these games in a row. I don't like Washington to win this game, so I don't even know if Dak's going to have to do as much through the air. Jeff mentioned it. Washington is a pass funnel. This is where they're going to exceed. So Dak's going to have success through the air, but that doesn't necessarily mean Gibson is going to get his normal workload as well, so I'd be fading this one.
All right, dudes, we have now the highest total on the board for the main slate is Bills-Bucks. And Tom Brady's passing total in that one, 306.5. Buffalo's pass defense, as you all know, well rested after last week's game against New England. What are the chances they can slow down the Tampa pass attack and hold TB12 under this total, Pierce?
I'm going to go with Tom Brady going underneath this. He'll be efficient. He'll be effective. I like Tampa Bay to win at home. But we've seen the formula for beating the Buffalo Bills this season. It's not getting into a shootout. It's not going toe-to-toe through the air in an up-tempo game. It's sitting on the ball. It's running the ball. It's grinding the clock out. And I don't think we're going to see an exaggeration of 3 pass attempts like we saw last week, but something similar to what Tennessee did, what Indianapolis did. Those teams still passed the ball, but they didn't rely heavily on the passing game. They put it on the ground. Fournette should have a big game. Brady will play well, but not over 300.
Producer Tom Glennon has been in my ear about 5 times over the last 30 seconds telling me this has jumped from 306.5 to 307.5 and then back down to 306.5. He says he's never seen anything like it. And odds are subject to change, everybody. Steve, wow. I mean, if this thing is up to 307.5 from 306.5, that's a game changer.
I mean, obviously, people were listening to Pierce and doing the opposite. So, I mean, there's your answer right there. They hated his answers. They said, let's pivot off of Pierce. Here's the thing that people need to realize, right? You know, Pierce said, you know, the way to beat the Bills is, you know, grind out the clock, run the ball. That is not what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers do. Okay, don't take 2 weeks ago with Leonard Fournette's, you know, ridiculous game that the Buccaneers run the ball. Even with as much as they did that, and as much as Leonard Fournette got the ball 2 weeks ago, the Buccaneers pass more than any other team in the league. They're just under 68% of the time they're passing the ball. They're going to continue to do that against the Buffalo Bills. And you also have to remember, when you look at how good Buffalo's been in their secondary, most of those numbers are with Tre'Davious White. He is no longer in the mix anymore. That makes the Buffalo Bills extremely liable through the air now because he was by far one of their best corners in all of the NFL. So now you take that out of the mix. Now you have Tom Brady, who all he does is throw the ball. He should be able to go over that number. I'm not worried about that at all.
Okay, Jeff, you want over this number?
I mean, I hate to play the tiebreaker in this one because this is one where it kind of depends on how you think this game is going to go. I think that if you like the Bills and you think it's going to be a high tempo shootout and the Bills offense is going to score, you should go over Tom Brady's total. And Steve mentioned, Tre'Davious White being out, but I think as a whole, this is kind of a statement game for the Buffalo Bills. I'm going to take the under here. This is a team that's first in terms of yards per pass attempt against, and in terms of the lowest mark in the league. Even with White out, I just think this defense stiffens up a bit. And I also think that, the Bucs, they've been running the ball better with Leonard Fournette. I think they will take a little bit more of a, not I want to say cautious approach, but smarter approach. Try and keep Josh Allen off the field. They've seen how other teams have beaten the Bills. I just don't think this one's going to devolve into the shootout that people think it's going to. So I'm going to take the under on Brady.
All right, let's
Smarter
go.
approach. You have Tom Brady.
Oh, all right. Let's go to
It's late in the season, Steve. His arm is getting sore. He's
Bro,
yeah, it looks like it really is too.
Yeah, that's what happened last year.
maybe that is why he's throwing to Leonard Fournette like 7-8 times a game now.
good call, Emerson.
Hey,
There we go.
Hey, he is super pliable though, bro. All right, let's go to another quarterback here. I don't know if he's as pliable as Tom Brady. Last time Lamar Jackson faced the Browns, he threw for just 165 yards and 4 interceptions, but he did rush for 68 yards on the ground in that game. His rushing total prop for this one, gentlemen, set at 62.5. How much do you like that number, Steve?
I mean, he's always in that realm, right? Like,
Yeah.
you don't want to take the under when it comes to Lamar Jackson rushing. Like, he's averaging about 12 rushing attempts per game. Like, this running backs who don't even get that much. I mean, Jackson is just consistently in that realm there, but we talk about a game that the Ravens have to win. Like, this is one of those games. And, Lamar Jackson, he's still completing over 60% of his pass attempts over his last 4 games. So it's not like he hasn't been overly efficient, but he needs to run the ball more. That's where this offense that's been struggling is getting their best production. I mean, he did, 8 attempts last week for 55 yards. He was almost averaging 7 yards per carry against the Pittsburgh Steelers last week. Like, they have to design more of these runs for Lamar Jackson because that's where they're finding success. I think that's going to be one of their best options, to keep the Browns off the field because their running game is so strong. So I think that's where we have to go there. So I'm taking the over on this one.
Okay, Jeff, you want the over as well?
I mean, much like Tom Brady's prop, I think how you approach this Lamar Jackson prop depends on how you think the game is going to go. I personally really like Cleveland here. One of my hot takes I think Cleveland's going to blow out Baltimore. I think Baltimore is so overdue for a blowout game here, and I think Cleveland is better than they've shown. And if that happens, Cleveland's going to have the ball for the whole game because there's rumblings they're going to try and use Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt on the field. They're going to run the ball like 30 times. Lamar Jackson may just not have the ball enough to go over this. Cleveland's also very good at limiting quarterbacks' rushing yards. They've done it all year. So I'm going to take the under on Lamar Jackson, but mainly because I like the Browns to win big in this game. If you're of the other opinion, I would probably take the over on it.
Pierce, over or under this number?
I actually think the Browns will win, and Lamar Jackson will go over this number.
Great,
This
Pierce,
offensive
thanks.
line for Baltimore is terrible. They lost players in the free agency. They've had injuries coming into this season, and you can see, look at the numbers. Lamar Jackson's been hit more this season than ever in a full season. He's been hurried more this season than ever in an entire 16-game season. He's been pressured more than in a 16-game season. And he's also scrambled 49 times. Before this season, the most he had ever scrambled before was 49 times. And he's going to deal with a lot of pressure against Cleveland. He's going to scramble. I think he's gun shy, so he's definitely going to look to run even when he has protection. And in those cases, you're going to see him go over the 60-yard mark pretty easily.
All right, we'll wrap it up with this one, dudes. Tyreek Hill, 6th in the NFL in receiving yards, but he's had only 2 games go over 78.5 yards in his last 8 outings. So that's the number his receiving prop is set for this weekend when the Chiefs take on the Raiders. Does Hill go over that number against Vegas, Jeff?
Yeah, I think he does. I think the Vegas Raiders, and sorry to read Fowler here, are in for potentially a world of hurt this week. It just feels like the classic. Okay, everybody thinks Patrick Mahomes is hurt or injured and the Chiefs offense stinks again. And then they're just going to lay up 50 here. And you look at what the Raiders defense has done. I mean, you can just see that like the lack of depth on this team and is starting to get to them. I mean, they allowed the Bengals to kind of just chuck the ball all over the yard. And Tyreek Hill, we know, went for 2 touchdowns in the first game. I think he's more than overdue for a big yardage game. I just want basically over on all of the Chiefs offensive players this week. Because like I said, I think they're just going to pile it on again here. So I'll take the over.
Pierce, is he in line for a big receiving game?
Yeah, give me the over as well. Defensive coordinator Gus Bradley, the architect of the Legion of Boom, designed a great defense because he had great players. Everywhere he's gone since then, it's failed, and it's failing again in Las Vegas because he just doesn't have the players to get it done. We saw that in the first matchup against Kansas City. Kansas City was able to exploit it. We know that Mahomes and Hill haven't played very well this season, but in that game, they looked pretty much amazing. Dak Prescott threw for 375 yards recently against this defense. They just don't have the players, and Hill's definitely going to feast again.
Steve, is it an oversweep?
You know, you look at the past 5 games for Patrick Mahomes. He's hardly cracking over 60% completion percentage on all of his pass attempts. And then there's that one exception. It was against the Raiders, where he completed 70% of his pass attempts, 35 for 50 in that game for over 400 yards. This secondary just cannot stop the Chiefs. They can't stop really anybody. It doesn't matter. And then you have somebody like Tyreek Hill, who is just always averaging over a double digits yards per reception. He's going to do fine in this game here. I know it's been a tough stretch for him as of late, but it's been a tough stretch for the Patrick Mahomes passing the ball altogether. But he's been able to do this against the Raiders. I'll take the over in this spot.
All right, guys, good stuff. Jeff, please hang out. We need you for some NHL opening face-off coming up. Pierce and Steve, you two will tell us if we need to splurge or save in DFS on Sunday. But first, wow, oh my God, Steve, it's your partner in crime, Julian Edlow, sitting down with Kendrick Perkins to talk about basketball stuff for the Unreasonable Odds podcast.
Talking about sports betting a little bit more, have you bet on any on sports in the past? Are you when you're going through NBA, when you're in legal states and whatnot?
You know what? I have. I'm more of an NFL guy than the NBA guy. And I'm more of a first half guy. See, I like to get mine out.
I've heard you say this before on Daily Wager. So go ahead, explain that to us.
Absolutely. I'm more of a first half guy. One is because the line basically at some points get cut in half. So, and I like to see, especially in the NFL, teams like to strike first. So when I see something that I call a deadbolt lock, like, maybe Tampa Bay playing the Falcons or, New England playing anybody the way that they're playing right now. The Patriots are a lock every single week, but I like to get mine out the way fast. I don't want to wait the entire game.
You sound like you would be a great first touchdown bettor, is what you need to get into. That is a quick strike right there. All right, let's talk about the NBA season a little bit here. A lot of parity in the NBA right now. Before it was, hey, Golden State's going to win it. Hey, LeBron's going to win it, and Miami. Now there are a lot of teams that can potentially win the NBA championship. Ever since Kawhi and Toronto stole that one, it's kind of been more open. What are your thoughts on who's going to win the title? Early thoughts, obviously, in the NBA so far this season.
Well, you know what? The NBA is back to a great place, right? Where it's equal throughout. The Eastern Conference is strong again. The Western Conference has always been strong. But when you look at teams like, the Warriors, when you look at teams like the Utah Jazz, even the Phoenix Suns, the Milwaukee Bucks, it's up for grabs. And I always say this, you don't win championships in December or January. You win championships in June. So as being a former champion, a guy that has been through those battles, you want to be playing your best basketball in April and May, right? And so when I look at teams that are constructed for the long haul, I really don't have a favorite. I really don't. Because,
I love it.
But because I'm looking at it, I'm like, you know what? And I'm not being a homer. If the Celtics could get their act together, if Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum could play well together at the same time, I think they have a fighting chance. I mean, it'd be tough to get through Milwaukee. I think they could beat the Brooklyn Nets, especially without Kyrie Irving. Should I be saying his name around this area?
You can say his name. I'm a Celtics season ticket holder. I don't love the guy.
I know how y'all feel about him. But, this is the fun part about the NBA is that people were ready to crown the Lakers early, because they have potentially 6 future Hall of Famers. And as you can see, nobody is scared of nobody. So I'm just looking forward to see who is playing the best basketball in April.
All right, you mentioned the Warriors. The Warriors seem to be back, and they don't even have Klay Thompson on the floor yet. He's going to be on the floor. Number 2 pick of last year's draft, James Wiseman, not even on the floor yet. He's going to be on the floor. I want to talk MVP with you for a minute because Steph is, I don't want to say carrying that team, but he's doing a lot right now. He is the odds-on favorite to win the MVP award right now. Is that where, if I'm saying here's a free bet for you, you got to bet MVP, is it Steph Curry or are you going elsewhere?
I'm going with Steph Curry. But it's not a deadbolt lock, okay, because he do have a lot of other players that's on his heels like a pair of socks. You got Kevin Durant, who's leading the league in scoring. Brooklyn is at the top of the Eastern Conference. No Kyrie Irving, and he's still carrying their team on both ends of the floor. But what Steph is doing right now, to say that he's arguably having his best season of his career, I would have to take that bet. I'm not calling it a dead.
And that says somebody that has already won a unanimous MVP with the vote.
Yeah. But listen to me, Jay. Look, I'm not saying that I love it. I like it. See, a deadbolt lock for me is something that I love. But I will say right now he's the front runner.
All right. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about my favorite team of all time while I have you here, that being the 2008 Boston Celtics. You bring in Kevin Garnett, changes the whole culture of the team. We were just talking about the MVP award. In my personal opinion, the biggest MVP snub of all time that I've ever seen is Kevin Garnett in 2008. From what he brought in, you were there before. That season before was ugly. I watched all the games. What he brought in terms of culture, talk to me about that, because Kevin Garnett, and conveniently enough, somehow, that was Kobe's only MVP year in 2008. That award was Kevin Garnett's. Tell me why I am right.
You are right. And here's the thing about the MVP, right? Every single year, it seemed like the narrative changed, or they moved the goalposts on why this guy's the MVP and this guy didn't win the MVP. I always go back and look at the Steve Nash and Phoenix situation. You know, he was averaging around 16 points and 11 assists, but because they won 60-plus games, because they had the best record in the league, he won the MVP. Well, you go back to what Kevin Garnett brought. I mean, he was a 20-10 guy and 5 assists, Defensive Player of the Year. And I just felt like what he did on both ends of the floor, you know, his numbers probably wasn't better than Kobe's for scoring-wise, but I felt like his impact on winning and what he meant. Because to me, an MVP is you take this guy off this team and what would this team be? So, I mean, I think that pretty much answers your question. I'm not being a homer because Kevin Garnett is a brother of mine, and I'm not being a homer because you're sitting up here being one of my new favorite best friends. I'm just keeping it real.
Riveting stuff there from Julian Edlow and Kendrick Perkins. We'll keep the basketball chatter alive and well now. DraftKings contributor Matt Meiselman, that is our man today. This is not a panel because a panel suggests more than one. But NBA building blocks here, Matty. Favorite DFS plays at the following position for tonight's, what do we got, 9-game NBA slate. Who are you going to build around at center?
I'm going to have to give the same caveat, I think, for every answer, because I'm going to be really surprised if both LeBron and AD play tonight. I don't know which one will be out. It could be both of them, but I think at least one of those guys rests. So just going to have to kind of filter everything through that lens. But if Davis does play, I like him a lot. I think the matchup against OKC is a really good one. The Lakers have lost to this Thunder team twice this year, but they've still put up numbers in those games. They've been some high-scoring games. So Davis could do really well, especially if LeBron doesn't play. But then I'll give the second answer. If there's no Davis, we're going to see a ton of Dwight Howard because DeAndre Jordan has basically just fallen out of the rotation at this point. I think if Davis is the one that sits, we see Dwight Howard, who's extremely cheap, moving into the starting lineup. He's been starting a little bit anyway, and I think there's a lot of opportunity for him to put up numbers too. So I kind of like Lakers in some capacity regardless, but we'll see how the injury situation breaks.
Yeah, for sure. Davis will cost you 9-6 tonight on DraftKings. What about at forward? Who's worth building your lineups around at that position?
I'll move to another team at least for this answer, because in Charlotte, we have a bunch of guys that are still out for COVID protocols. And even though these guys are priced up, I still think you kind of need someone here at least, because the Hornets are at home against Sacramento, which is a really, really good matchup. And Miles Bridges, Gordon Hayward, Kelly Oubre, and even Cody Martin, these are all guys that are just asked to do a ton right now because the team is just really shorthanded. So I truly don't know which of them I like the most. I think that Oubre might be the one that is the least popular. His price tag is the highest there at 7,800. So I'll just go with him kind of by default for that reason. But I really think that because of the matchup against Sacramento and because these guys are all kind of the same position, someone here is going to have a huge night. So Oubre, I'm just kind of leaning towards him, but I kind of think you need at least one of these guys in your lineup somewhere.
Yeah, Bridges has, I'm looking at this, played 40-plus minutes each of the last 3 games. He popped off in that first one, but then ran into some issues against like a defensive-minded team in Philly there. What about at guard, dude? Talk to me there.
So if there's no LeBron, Russell Westbrook is 10,200, which is kind of just I mean, that's the highest price tag on the Lakers, and he is not the Lakers' best player. I guess he could be from a fantasy perspective, but I think LeBron has really just been taking over in recent games. And it just, to me, it seems unlikely that LeBron's going to go tonight. So you take him off the court, and then Westbrook looks really, really appealing. I'll give one other answer, though, just in case, because we don't know this stuff. Like, I'm kind of just guessing here. Yep. But I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to get a lot of attention in the 8K range just because he's done well against the Lakers. The Lakers' defense has not been very good. And I think that's just like a little bit too low of a price for him in general. So I'm going to go with a pivot to the Suns-Celtics game and take Chris Paul, who I think will be a lot less popular. Devin Booker is still out, and Paul hasn't had a huge game yet in Booker's absence. The Suns have also had a couple tough matchups. They were playing the Spurs, who are not like crazy up-tempo team, decent defensively. They played the Warriors a couple times before that. And the Celtics aren't the greatest matchup either. I just think that Paul kind of goes overlooked because it's like, oh, he's up to 8,300 now. That's a little more than Chris Paul usually costs. I just don't think people are going to gravitate there too much. So I'll go with Westbrook if there's no LeBron, but if I have to pick somewhere else because the Lakers decide not to rest anybody, I think Chris Paul is the best choice.
Yeah, averaging just under 40 fantasy points a game this season. Can you build around someone in the value department on this slate? What do you think?
I don't love a ton of the value yet, but again, if any Lakers sit, that potentially opens things up for Dwight Howard. I think even if LeBron doesn't play, you could see Davis slide down to the 4 and Dwight Howard start at center just because they're kind of shorthanded there and they really don't want to play DeAndre Jordan. But the other guy that becomes interesting is Talen Horton-Tucker, who's only 4,900. So I think if you take LeBron or Davis, or maybe Westbrook gets a night off, they never really rest him. Maybe he kind of needs one. He might be the guy on the team who is most in need of having a game off at some point. But Horton-Tucker's not that expensive. We've seen him have some huge fantasy games this year. The caveat is you need at least one of these guys to be out to make him a really good play. I still think he's viable regardless. Like, it's not that expensive, and he's playing a decent amount of minutes. He's been starting more often than not. But if you remove one of the Lakers' top 3 guys, then Horton-Tucker really should be able to get a lot of usage and just extra minutes in this game.
Matty, I feel like there's a good Twitter account out there that people should follow just to know the latest up-to-date updates and injury news in the NBA. Do you know what it would be?
That would be the DK Live Twitter account.
Wow, man, dude, I was
Did
thinking.
I get it right?
Yeah, no, I was thinking the exact same thing. That's crazy. Like, we're on the same page. Before you take off here, let's go to the DK Sportsbook real quick. Let's get your favorite bet tonight.
Okay, so I'm going to touch on this same game, and then I'll give one more after it because it's a little repetitive. But if we take some Lakers out of this game, the Thunder are only +5. I still think that that's too high. Like, the Lakers are on a back-to-back. They just lost in Memphis last night. I've been basically saying this the whole season, that the Lakers are just not a good team, even if they're at full strength. They're actually playing a lot worse than even I expected, so I'm not sure that, like, they're going to keep being this bad, but they're not a good team. They don't have a lot of depth, and you take one of their stars off the court in LeBron or Davis, and the Thunder are probably almost as good as the Lakers. So +5 if one of those guys is out, I like a lot. Other than that, we have the Pelicans at home against the Pistons. And the Pelicans have gotten a little bit healthier. They were without Brandon Ingram for a while. Josh Hart's back, who's actually like a pretty important rotation player for them, good defender. I don't think the Pelicans are a bad team. I actually think that they're a dark horse playoff contender once Zion can finally get on the court. But at least for the time being, they're only laying 6 at home against the Pistons. And I just think this is a pretty lopsided game where the spread should be a couple points higher than that.
Way to put this segment on your back like JanSport, dude. Appreciate you, Matty. We are going to kind of do what we just did, but for the NHL coming up right after this quick break. Sticky puck time. Welcome back to DraftKings contributor Jeff Ulrich, and hello to the riveting RotoWire duo of Paul Bruno and AJ Scholes, talking favorite DFS and sports betting plays on tonight's 7-game NHL slate. Paul, favorite DFS play at center is who and why?
Riveting, huh? I like that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
The Avs have scored 23 goals in their last 4 games, Emerson, while the Wings have been blitzed for 19 in the same stretch. The Detroiters limp into Colorado on the second of back-to-backs after getting pummeled last night by an undermanned St. Louis club. So this is a game where I think the Avs strike and pile on big time. As such, I'm tempted to go all the way to the top of the board to get Nate McKinnon in my lineup for $9,200. He's rolling with 13 points in his last 10 games. If that's too rich for you, I look next at Mark Scheifele, as he has snapped out of an early scoring funk this season, and he's got 10 points in the last 10 games as part of Winnipeg offense that's finally at full strength and firing on all cylinders, I might add. He's on the second of back-to-backs, though, but that won't be a big deal as his mates weren't taxed too much by a 3-0 win in Seattle. He costs only $6,600 tonight in Vancouver.
All right, AJ, what are you doing at center?
Sidney Crosby has played 61 games against the Caps over the course of his career, and he's racked up 28 goals and 52 assists in those games. He finally has his legs under him. Look, I get there might be some concerns about the Gensel injury. $7,100 is a high price to pay. But when guys are out, that's when Sid, the kid, thrives even more than usual. He loves playing against Alexander Ovechkin. These two just bring it out of each other, and both are capable of racking up huge points whenever they play against each other. I'll take Crosby tonight against the Caps.
Yeah, one of 4 centers that'll cost you north of $7,000. Jeff, talk to me.
Well, like I normally do, I try to target players who are just going through long, cold stretches and see if we can catch them on the night where they break out. Mika Zibanejad certainly fits that bill, hasn't scored in 10 games, but guess what? The tonic is on the slate tonight. He plays the Buffalo Sabres, and he's 6,500. I don't know how you don't get a piece of the New York Rangers top line here. I know it hasn't looked good on the score sheet, but this is way too cheap for a player who, I mean, he used to be one of the most prolific goal scorers in the league, and he probably will be again at some point. Zibanejad at 6,500 to me, you got to take a shot there. And if you want some real value, Ryan Johansson has actually played well this year. I mean, he's almost a point per game player again. He's a pretty talented dude, and he's got a very good matchup against New Jersey too. So I just play the weaker teams here, or play the players who have the weaker teams on their schedule tonight, because there's a couple of them on the slate.
Okay, so at wing, who's your favorite DFS play, AJ?
Well, I'm going to ride with Sid's 2 wingers here because they'll get you some value as well. And that's Evan Rodriguez at 4,800. He's got 7 points in his last 8 games. And then the struggling Kasperi Kapanen, similar to what Jeff was saying, Kapanen described his game as terrible. He's the first one to call it out. He's only $3,100 here, but it's going to be Kapanen who gets to step in to that Jake Gensel spot on the top line. And I just think too good a value, too good of a situation to pass up for him. And I think, hit when the iron's hot, and he's going to be right there tonight.
Okay, who's going to be right there in your eyes, Paul?
Among the premier options on the wings tonight, I like Mikko Rantanen, who was priced at $800 cheaper than his center. I talked about with him already. Rantanen's got 12 points in his last 10 games, and he gets that same great matchup against a club that some of my friends are calling the dead things again. Oddly, the third member of the top Colorado line is priced at only $6,900, so Gabriel Landeskog makes even more sense. He too has 12 points in his last 10 starts. And finally, Mark Stone costs a little cheaper than all of them at $5,500, and the Knights are back at full strength, and they're starting to look like the team that I thought they would be and dominating the Pacific Division. They're about to go on a roll, folks, and this guy has 11 points in 10 games and gets a favorable matchup against a Philadelphia club that is on a 10-game record losing streak for that franchise. The bleeding won't stop tonight for the Flyers in Sin City.
So, Jeff, at wing, you're going to spend a lot of money here?
No, I actually don't think you need to spend a lot of money at wing at all tonight. There's a ton of players between like 65 and 5,000 on DraftKings where, I mean, you're getting like really elite production just in terms of shots on goal. And some of these guys are just like, on hot streaks as well. I'll start with Nikolai Ehlers at 6,100. I'm not really scared of the Vancouver Canucks here, despite them winning 2 games in a row. Congrats. Ehlers is averaging 4.6 shots on goal over his last 10 games. He's got 5 goals in that stretch too, but I really like the Jets. Their offense is really clicking right now. I know it's mainly been the top line, but Ellers at 6,100 is just a good bargain, and you're getting a good bargain with Mark Stone too at 5,500. I mean, again, like we've got the Flyers on the slate. There's so many weak teams to target here where you can just look for these juicy matchups, guys who are undervalued. Stone averaging over a point per game. He's just a good player. Obviously gives you really good exposure to that Vegas top six. So those are the two guys I would target in that range. And again, not a night I feel like I have to pay up on wing.
Jeff, which blue line potato chip are you feeling this evening?
Yeah, so I mean, exact opposite sentiment. I mean, we've got three. Like, I feel like you need to get a piece of one of these top defensemen because you've got, you've got Fox, you've got Kale Makar, and then you've got Roman Josi, all kind of just with fantastic matchups. I like just going up to Josi because I think he's going to be the least owned of those three names I threw out. He's the most expensive, but I mean, player averaging over 15 DraftKings points over his last 10 games. The New Jersey Devils just allow goals at an obscene rate right now. Their goaltending's not good. Their penalty kill, is not good. And the Predators actually turned into a decent little offensive team here of late. I like Josie tonight because, again, for big fields, I think he's going to be the lesser owned of those three names I threw out.
All right, AJ, do you agree? You need to get a piece of one of the top D-men this evening.
I do agree, and actually, I think get two of them. Save up at other spots. Reserve your money. You know, Jeff gave you some value options. We'll give you a few more in a bit here. But go and get both. I've got Makar and Fox in my lineup. You can make it work without having to, stretch with some really down guy who's out of position. Rangers are playing the Sabres. The Avs get the Red Wings. If you are only going to go one, I guess I trend towards Fox because he's $300 cheaper. But really, maybe consider both. That's what I'm doing tonight.
All right, Paul, how about you, dude?
I'm with these guys, and they're thinking with the cheap wingers, so you can pay up and get a guy of the top guys, though. I like Kale Makar. He's putting up video game numbers, Emerson, with 9 goals and 6 helpers in his last 10 games. Some of the best forwards in the league never do that. Incredibly, he's the 4th most expensive among those top guys at $7,400. And again, we're hammering that matchup, that great matchup against the Red Wings, says this broken record. One of the 4 among the top guys is Aaron Ekblad, but I'm looking at his teammate Mackenzie Weegar, priced at only $5,800, despite his 9 points, 23 shots on goal, and 24 blocked shots. That adds up to an average of 13.1 DraftKings points in each of his last 10 games. That's a nice value for that kind of production.
Wow. Well, speaking of value here, where is the best value on tonight's slate, Paul?
If you want to go for a cheap but solid play, I recommend buying into Ryan Strome for $4,800. He's got 10 points his last 10 games. Emerson, he comes into action against a woeful Sabres club, but I heard will be canvassing fans as they arrive at tonight's game to see who would like to start in goal for them this evening because they haven't got many other healthy options back there at the moment. In the low rent district, I also turned to the Caps' Dmitry Orlov for $4,100. He has a tough rivalry matchup against the AJ's favorite club, but he's enjoying his career best scoring pace that would see him top 40 points for the first time in his 10-game career.
AJ, value, please.
Well, obviously, I mentioned Kasperi Kapanen. 3,100 is a huge value for a top-line guy. But I also really like Carter Verhaeghe tonight at 4,500. The Panthers get the Coyotes, so again, targeting a good matchup. And Verhaeghe looks like he's going to be playing with both Alexander Barkov and Anthony Duclair for what I think is the first time this season that they've had that line all together. So between the matchup and the line mates, he should basically trip into a point or two tonight and really could help you build that out.
Jeff, save some money for us, please.
Yeah, I mean, I'll bring up the same guy I brought up, and I think the last time we did a value segment, that's Valerie Nikushkin. I mean, 4,000, again, just playing in all situations for the Colorado Avalanche. Terrific matchup against Detroit. And again, I don't think that you need to go from this game. I think you can go to the other side of this game for value as well. Robbie Fabry, playing big minutes on the top 6 as well. I mean, look, Colorado's scoring a lot of goals, but man, they have had some stinkers as well. I mean, let's not forget they lost to the Sens, allowing 6 goals to them a while ago. So I think Detroit's cheap players definitely in play tonight. Fabry well under 4K. He's good value.
All right, we'll get out of here with this, guys. Best DK Sportsbook play in the NHL is what, AJ?
I like 2 favorites here. It's the Rangers to cover the puck line against the Sabres. You get plus 135 value. Some of those other high-targeted teams are actually not returning real good value on the puck line. And then, of course, I'm going to take the Penguins every time they're going to give you value on the money line. They're plus 125 on the DK Sportsbook. Crosby's just that good. You got to take him when you can get value on Pittsburgh.
Paul, hook me up.
I love the alternate goal total, so I'm going to give it 2 there tonight, Emerson. The second best team in the league pays a visit to the worst club. I see Alexander Barkov is deemed healthy enough to rejoin that Panthers' potent attack, and that's even more trouble than the Coyotes might have anticipated. I think the Cats will go to the 6 over-under line all by themselves, so take the over here on the alternate to go over 7.5 for a plus 250 payout. It should be the same script also as the Wings pay a visit to Colorado. As you know from my earlier answers, this game is not projected to be viewed as a classic from the rivalry days of the blood feud that existed between these two teams some 20 years ago. I don't see how the potent offense of the Avs doesn't get to the normal line all by themselves against the overmatched Wings. So I'm going to take a look at the alternate prop of over 7.5 total for a winning bet at plus 220.
All right, Jeff, bring us home here. Favorite DK Sportsbook play?
Yeah, I'm only giving you one because I really like it. It's the Winnipeg Jets as underdogs against the Vancouver Canucks. Are we serious here? Jets offense has started clicking, but they're still getting no respect and getting up plus 115 on the money line. I know Eric Comrie is slated to start here. Eric Comrie's not that bad, though. I just don't really think it matters. I mean, the Vancouver Canucks, still a bad penalty kill, still a team that the Jets' top line could easily just go off for 3 or 4 goals on their own tonight. I think this is just an overreaction to the Canucks changing coaches, winning a couple games. This is still a big divide in terms of quality of teams here. Take the Jets as underdogs for sure tonight.
Guys, that was fantastic work. We do have one more block to go, everybody. We're going to talk about who to splurge for on the main NFL slate when we come back. All right, we did the sports betting side of this weekend's NFL slate earlier in this show. So if you missed it, you want to watch it, go ahead and hit the little rewind button, if that's even a thing on YouTube and Twitch and Twitter. Right now, we do welcome back DraftKings contributors Steve Buchanan, Pierce Dietrich, and good morning to RotoWire's Alan Seslowski. We have you guys here for a little DFS talk. Splurge or save. So you guys going to pay up or save salary at the following positions on the Week 14. We're just talking main slate. Quarterback, Alan, what are you going to do?
By the way, you rewind on YouTube using the toggle thing. You slide.
Perfect.
You slide back.
Excellent.
Yeah. I think the pay down obvious, Captain Obvious pick is Taysom Hill. Sorry if you guys had that one as well. Popped off the page at 5,600. A running quarterback against the worst defense in the league. Yes, please. Hill doesn't have any wide receivers that scare you, but he is probably getting Alvin Kamara back. And when Hill is playing quarterback, it can hurt Kamara a little bit. He's less likely to dump off the ball to running backs than some of those other pocket passers. But, he does open up the running lanes they complement each other. I like Hill, but this pick is more of an opponent-based pick rather than picking Hill himself.
Okay. Steve, what are you going to do here? Splurge or save?
I mean, it is not a mystery that Taysom Hill is one of the most annoying fantasy players in all of fantasy, especially when he doesn't have that defined role. Pierce didn't like that. You don't like that statement, Pierce? What are you rolling your eyes for?
Wow.
No, I'm feeling your pain. I'm empathizing. Taysom Hill is brutal in fantasy, and
He
I can
is
already see
brutal.
what's going to happen.
He's brutal, but when he has that defined role, he's not that annoying because we can rely upon him to be playing under center. Here's something I want to point out about that game against the Cowboys. He was not accurate at all. He completed like 46% of his pass attempts, but that is because he was under pressure so much in that game. When he was under pressure last week, which was on 42% of his dropbacks, he averaged 0.9 yards per pass attempt. That is absolutely putrid. When he was working with a clean pocket, though, he was 17 for 26 for 251 yards and adjusted completion percentage of just under 80%. He is not going to get pressure from the New York Jets. They can't get pressure on anybody. So at 5,600, he has some good upside here. I agree with Allen. I think he's the option to pay down with.
As long as he's not throwing away fantasy points with his mistakes. Pierce, what do you got? Splurge or save? Hey, pal, keep it down.
Sorry.
Yeah, I can't criticize their picks because I'll probably take a quarterback that's maybe worse. But he also likes to run the ball, and he's in a good spot. Cam Newton, he's facing Atlanta, 29th in pass, 21st against the rush. This is an equally good spot for a rushing quarterback. We know that Carolina fired their terrible offensive coordinator, Joe Brady, because they wanted to run the ball more. That doesn't mean they're going to give the ball to Chuba Hubbard more. They're going to give the ball to Cam Newton more. You're going to get the rushing yards. You're going to get the touchdown opportunities. And the biggest thing here is you're going to get really low ownership for a cheap quarterback that has tremendous upside. He could bust, just like Taysom Hill could bust, but you don't have to worry about Alvin Kamara having an awesome game. Hubbard's not going to have an amazing game. I like the ownership and the price.
Okay. He's at home. He loves playing against his hometown team, too, in Atlanta. At running back, Pierce, you're going to splurge or save?
I'm going to splurge, and it's kind of going against the grain of what these guys were already playing, but Alvin Kamara is in the same good spot that Taysom Hill is in. And if they just give him the ball, and I don't even really need the receptions out of the backfield. That's great. That's a boost. But what else are they going to do? Taysom Hill's not a good quarterback. He doesn't have any receivers. New York can't stop the run. And it looks like the Saints are going to get some of their offensive line back. We could see him get 30-plus carries in this game. I mean, why wouldn't you? If you're the Saints, you're still trying to make the playoffs. You can fool around with Taysom Hill all you want, or you can just give it to Kamara because we know he's the best player they have. We know they can't stop him. We know the Jets are just getting worse every single week. Feeding the ball, he could get 40 fantasy points in this game.
Ooh, Allen.
I'm paying in the middle. I like Josh Jacobs. He's running hot right now. Since Kenyon Drake was lost for the season, Jacobs is the guy in the passing game. There was some cockamamie talk that Jalen Richard was going to be involved, and now he's out of the way. It's Josh Jacobs the whole way, catching 9 of 9 targets last week. His floor has been about 4 or 5 targets over the last month. Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in with Josh Jacobs.
Ooh. Steven.
Yeah, I'm going to be going back with who was one of the chalkier players last week with Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon obviously failed to do much because of the game script was not in favor of the Bengals. They fell so far behind the Chargers so quickly that they needed to pass the ball. That is not going to happen, I don't think, in this game against the 49ers, despite the fact that the Bengals started off the week as favorites and now they're the underdogs in this game. I'm sorry, I don't see what the love is for the San Francisco 49ers. That team is absolutely atrocious. They have a number of injuries that they're dealing with. I don't think that they're as strong as people are giving them credit for. So give me Joe Mixon, who is one of the best red zone running backs in the league so far this season. Multiple touchdowns in multiple games. He's getting at least 20 carries in this game. Give me him at 7,700.
Joe Mixon? Did I see he wasn't spotted at practice today for like a third straight day, too?
That's fine.
I know. It just makes me nervous as a manager of his in one of my season long leagues.
I will say this. If he's out, then don't play him.
Okay. Very good. Very fantastic analysis. Let's see what you got for wide receiver, Steve.
Yeah, I'd like going to CeeDee Lamb in this game against the Washington football team. Fairly close spread in this one. The Cowboys are -4.5 favorites going against the Washington football team. We're coming into this game. They've won, snapped off 5 wins in a row, but that secondary is a massive problem for them. And this balanced Cowboys offense should be able to go downfield against them with ease. CeeDee Lamb is by far the wide receiver one in this offense. I think he's going to be in a great spot here going against a very generous secondary to opposing receivers. So I'll splurge this position here. Give me CeeDee Lamb at 7,200.
Okay, Alan, you want to splurge? You want to save here at wide receiver?
Save Hunter Renfro, 5,800 over the last 5 weeks. Hunter Renfro is the wide receiver 8 overall in PPR scoring, about 16.8 points per game. That's more points per game than Tyreek Hill, than CeeDee Lamb, than Chris Godwin, than Mike Evans. You want me to keep going on? Throw some respect on his name. Throw him into your lineup. In a seasonal league, I'd play him over DK Metcalf right now.
I mean, he's the only consistent receiver in that offense as well. Pierce, splurging or saving at wide receiver?
I'll save. Give me Jarvis Landry. We know Baltimore's secondary wasn't that great last season, and they've been terrible this season. They lost Marcus Peters at the beginning. Now Marlon Humphrey is out. Their starting cornerback is a fifth-string cornerback. The stats bear it out. They're one of the worst tackling teams. They have allowed more 20-yard passes than any other team. Landry in their last matchup a couple weeks ago had 100 yards receiving against a defense that was a little bit more healthy. They're even weaker now. Jarvis Landry is just way too cheap. I know Baker Mayfield's not that good, but the Ravens' defense is that much worse.
Yeah, and he's the man since OBJ was shipped off to L.A. Tight end, Pierce, I'll let you start here because this is a position you and Jeff Ulrich shine in. Splurging or saving? I'm assuming saving.
Yeah, of course we're going to save, and we'll go full Galaxy brain and creative player mode with Miller Forrestal at the absolute minimum of 2,500. The safer play is who Steve recommends in his value play, which would be Austin Hooper at tight end against a Ravens team that has been terrible all season long against tight ends. But we know that the Browns run double tight end sets, and Njoku probably not going to play. Harrison Bryant is out. Steven Carlson is out. That means Forrestal has been signed from the practice squad where he's been all season, so he's familiar with the Browns offense. They're going to run double tight end sets like they did in the last matchup. He's going to get an opportunity. He'll have probably red zone looks. So if you're looking to absolutely purely punt, it's Forrestal.
Dude, he is all the way at the bottom of the tight end section here. Like all the way at the bottom. There are guys who are out and have COVID listed ahead of him. What is happening? Gosh, Pierce, you bring it every Friday. Steven, what do you got at tight end, man?
Yeah, I had to confirm that this was an actual player. So, so pardon me if I was a little distracted, but I have no problem with going with Austin Hooper. I mean, the tight end position, you need to say that, right? There's a lot of good value here with Austin Hooper, Gerald Everett, Evan Ingram, Nick Vannett, all in that mid 3K range, who are all viable this week. But Austin Hooper has been the guy he's been a bit inconsistent, but of the Browns tight ends, he leads in in snap share just under 70%, target share 13.1%, but most importantly, amongst all their tight ends, 24.3% target share in the red zone. That's what we need Hooper to do this week against a Ravens club who has just been decimated by opposing tight ends, allowing an average of just under 17 DraftKings fantasy points per game, 7 touchdowns allowed. I think Hooper's the play at 3,400.
I mean, the Browns should definitely go back to basic passing to help Baker Mayfield right now. Alan, tight end.
I'm saving. Jared Cook looks good to me this week at 3,200. I expected more from Cook this season. What was supposed to be the next coming of the greatest show on turf, but it's being target hog Keenan Allen doing target hog kind of things, leaving very little for anyone else in the middle of the field. But if Keenan Allen misses a game because he's on the COVID list, that opens up a dozen or so targets for the reliable veteran. He should get a little taste.
All right, we got a little more than a minute to go in the show, so let's talk DST very quickly. Alan, splurging or saving?
I'm saving the Carolina Panthers this week, 2,800. They look like the value to me. A good defense against an okay offense. Carolina's coming off the bye, should be prepped, rested. Matt Ryan has 8 fumbles this year. He's lost 2 of them. Is also top 10 in sacks, 26 of them. That's a quarterback stat, by the way, not so much an offensive line stat. Carolina's one of my favorite bets on the board at -2.5 this weekend, and a big reason is because I think they're going to make Matt Ryan uncomfortable.
Steven?
Yeah, I agree. Panthers, I think the play in this one here. I think there's only 2 people that are worse in the pocket than Ben Roethlisberger. One of them is Matt Ryan. So give me the Panthers, who have recorded at least 2 sacks in 5 straight games.
All right, Pierce, bring us home.
This is weird. 3 in a row with the Carolina defense.
Woo!
They've got a good pass rush. I don't like that Atlanta offensive line. I don't think Atlanta has very many weapons. We just saw this game a couple weeks ago. It's Carolina and the Chiefs.
The Carolina clean sweep. Thanks, dudes. Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone, for watching. We're back here at high noon on Sunday. Also, we got Bally Sports Networks. You can watch us there, too.